Hello friends, this is Rebecca Schisler from HaLev, sharing with you some thoughts on this week's Parshat. So some years ago I returned to Torah study after many years away, and I remember deeply struggling with this week's Parsha, Matot, in which Moshe instructs the Israelites to commit some awful war crimes against the Midianites. When I read that part of the story, it was difficult to digest. I remember thinking to myself, how can I love Torah? How can I exalt it? How can I learn from it with dedication when it contains not only powerful wisdom and messages of beauty, but also so much content that is extremely difficult to reconcile? While I was wrestling with this question, I was a student at Romamu Yeshiva, contemplative yeshiva, where alongside Torah study, I was also engaging every day in contemplative practice. And in practice, one of the most important insights we can have is the way that the nature of our mind is to make up stories about reality. We very rarely see reality for what it is. We see it through the lens of our interpretation. And when we observe the mind over long periods of time, we become aware of this. We see the stories that we're automatically constructing about what happens to us, our beliefs, our systems of making meaning. And with consistent practice, we begin to understand that truth itself is far more vast than our concepts. We begin to see that there is a difference between reality and the stories that we make up about it. This insight can be unsettling, because we want something solid to grasp onto, but it can also be tremendously liberating. The aim here is not to abandon our stories. There's nothing more human than living with and within stories. We need them. They're the stuff of our lives. They give our lives dynamism and beauty and shape. The aim here is to become aware of them. And with that awareness, we can grasp on a little less tightly. We can understand that we have choice in the stories that we hold. We see that they're malleable, they're shifting and changing all the time. We start to understand that we are not the victims or the heroes in our stories as we may have believed, but the very writers of them. In my struggle with this week's Parsha and the big question of how to love and learn from something that contains ugliness as well as beauty, I began to see Torah for what it is, a sacred story, the sacred story of our lives. Torah is like a mirror for life itself, containing the totality of the human experience: beauty, mystery, wisdom, power, ugliness, difficulty, injustice, and also a whole lot of the mundane. And what do we do with it? We make it sacred. We sing about it. We dedicate ourselves to its study, to gleaning insights and renewed ways of understanding it. We speak of it to one another on a regular basis. We write books and make art about it and go to great lengths to protect it. We love it. We wrestle with it. We continually return to it. And we treat it with the utmost respect. And we can relate to the stories of our lives in the same way, with love, with sanctity, and with awareness and space for the light of the unchanging, unconditioned, and ever-present truth to shine through. Shabbat Shalom.